everyone, welcome back to the channel, and of course welcome if you're new here. In this week's video I am sharing some quick simple meals that my family had for dinner this week, and I hope I give you some inspiration for creating some simple meals as well. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So on this night, I added a little pizzazz to our plain Jane grilled cheese. I got started by preparing a few strips of bacon, and I would have preferred to have a few more strips, but this was what I had left in my fridge and I needed to cook it up, so it's just what I used. I put this in my oven at 375 degrees for around 15 to 20 minutes, and I did watch it carefully since there was only a few pieces. While my bacon was cooking, I seeded 3 jalapenos and started roasting those on the griddle just to soften them a bit. Once those were done, I diced those jalapenos and bacon into small pieces. Next, I softened 4 ounces of cream cheese in the microwave for 20 seconds, then added in my bacon and jalapenos and gave it a good mix. Moving over to the stove, I started by buttering one side of the bread and laid that on my griddle. Then I layered on some of the jalapeno popper mixture and topped that with some thinly sliced cheddar cheese, followed by another slice of buttered bread. Once that side was browned to our liking, I carefully flipped it over and allowed the other side to brown. Very simple and super tasty. I haven't had jalapeno poppers in a while, and this was definitely a fun and delicious twist on 2 things that I enjoy eating: poppers and grilled cheese. On the next night, I created one of my favorites, bang bang shrimp. I started by creating the sauce so that while I'm cooking everything else, all the flavors can marry. I'm using a 1/4 cup of mayo, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar, and 2.5 or 3 tablespoons of sriracha. Just depends on how spicy you like it. And then I whisk all that together and let it sit in the fridge. Next, I got my rice going in the Instant Pot. I added 2 cups of white jasmine rice with 2 cups of water and about 1.5 teaspoons of cooking oil. I sealed my pot and selected the rice option. Meanwhile, I diced up a half of this tomato and a couple of green onions. So to bread my shrimp, I just made sure to pat my shrimp dry with a paper towel. Then I tossed them in some cornstarch. And I started with 3 tablespoons of the cornstarch, but I did have to add a little extra toward the end just to make sure that all of my shrimp were able to be coated. I heated up about a cup of vegetable oil in my pot, making sure that it wasn't smoking. I just set the heat above medium, just barely above, and I carefully placed my shrimp into the oil using tongs. And I like to do mine in smaller batches just so that I can easily flip them and make sure that all the shrimp are getting into that oil, just to ensure that crispy texture. Once they are done cooking, I remove them with a slotted spoon and I put them on a plate lined with a paper towel. Once those shrimp are cooked, I get everything out and start preparing my bowls. Like I said, this is one of my favorite dishes and I could easily eat this at least once a week. I hope you'll give this one a try. There's not much better than a one-skillet meal. So to start this one off, I sliced up some kielbasa into small slices and got that started browning on the stove in my skillet. Next, I diced up a half a yellow onion, 1/2 of a very large green bell pepper, and about 2 cups of broccoli. And then over at my stove, I went ahead and removed the browned sausage from the skillet and put it on a plate that was lined with a paper towel. Then I added in my bell pepper and onion to the skillet and allowed that to cook until it was translucent. I made sure to scrape the brown bits off the bottom of the skillet for added flavoring. Once that was cooked, I added in a pinch of salt and pepper and 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, and I just let that cook for a couple of minutes. Then I added in a cup of white rice and 2 cups of chicken broth. I allowed this mixture to come to a boil, then I covered the skillet and turned the heat to low and let it sit for 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes, I carefully dumped in my 2 cups of broccoli and I was very careful not to disturb the rice. I covered it back up and allowed it to steam the broccoli for about 5 to 8 minutes. Finally, I added in the sausage and about 1 cup of cheese, gave everything a little stir, and then I topped with an additional cup of cheese. I covered this and let the cheese melt for just a few minutes before serving. This is such an easy and hearty meal, and I especially love that there is minimal cleanup. My family loves this dinner, and it also makes excellent leftovers for lunch the next day. Here is some real life dinner inspo. This night we had a crazy day, so I just made whatever I could with pantry items that wouldn't take too much time. I started by preparing up a 1 pound of ground beef. I like buying these large amounts and cutting them into smaller size. It's often just more cost efficient. And I added in a few seasonings, just some salt, pepper, a little garlic powder, and a little Italian seasoning. I let that brown, and then I drained the grease from the pan. Then I had this 3 cheese marinara on hand, and I poured that in with about a 1/4 cup of water, and I let that come to a boil. Then I covered and lowered the heat to let it simmer for about 10 to 12 minutes. Meanwhile, I went ahead and boiled up some pasta noodles that I had. These were 2 partial boxes and needed to be used. Some nights are just a bit busier than others, and that's why I love to keep simple ingredients on hand that I can throw together in a pinch. I served up this simple spaghetti with a slice of Texas toast, and it was perfect. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope that you enjoyed watching some realistic dinners in my kitchen this week. As usual, I like to keep it super simple. Sometimes we have the time to get really creative and fancy, and other times it's just digging in the pantry and cooking what we got. But all are still super delicious and still fun to make. And hey, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. I truly appreciate your support, and I will see you next week.